We're your hosts,
Aaron Bacus
and Jason Kindler.
We like to sit down with our guests to hear their journey, their challenges, and how they impact the local community.
So grab a seat, tune in, and let's get inspired by Jacksonville's everyday workforce.
Welcome to Hometown Jax. All right, I'm excited to have Robby Schenck with us today. Robby is a local musician in the Jacksonville area that plays all around, and I've actually known him for a long time, but we'll get into that on how we met. I like to go right into the meat of it right off the bat, Robby. I want to know, what is the most requested cover song asked by people whenever you're up there asking for requests? I got to know that right off the bat.
Yeah, and you did send me. I asked for a brief look at the questions before I saw that on there, and I really had to think about it because there are a lot of them that are asked for, and Brown Eyed Girl is one.
I was thinking Brown Eyed Girl.
Also, Don't Stop Believin' by Journey.
Don't Stop. That's a surprising one.
I know. And,
that's kind of a makeout song. I wouldn't think that's like a bar song.
But it overwhelmingly, there's one, and it's Happy Birthday.
Oh, well, hey, don't spoil I got a question on that, so we'll get to that. But that's great. Journey, I never would have guessed. Brown Eyed Girl, I can definitely understand.
And that is also my mom's favorite song. So
at least that makes you feel good whenever you're singing that right off the bat.
And I'm very confident when people ask for it because I've played it for her so many times, So it's just one that I've played over 1,000 times.
Does your mom come to many shows still?
Yes, she does. She's my biggest supporter, and she does travel. She's retired now for about 3 years, and she bought an RV, and so she travels a lot more. So where it used to be, 2 to 3 shows a week, every week, year round. Now it's just spurts when she's back in town, and which is great. She's having a great time traveling, and
that's awesome. Yeah, it's always good to have the parents. I know my business partner's mom is one of the only people that comment on every one of my posts on social media, so it makes me feel good. At least I have one like every time. So let's take it back to when do you remember where you started loving music? Like when did that light bulb come on?
It came on, I think, in the 6th grade. So 13, is that what you are in 6th grade?
You really remember it that vividly?
I remember picking up the guitar and seeing my dad. My dad's a retired Presbyterian minister, and
didn't know that.
So there was always and he with the youth group was always involved musically, and so there was always a guitar around in our house, and I remember seeing him playing "Every Rose Has Its Thorn" by Poison, and
the youth minister's playing Poison.
Well, my dad, but it's 2 chords that are very similar, and you just move 2 fingers, and I remember thinking, man, I could do that, and it started from there. But up until then, I loved music, but I never had any interest in playing it. I was all about sports and baseball, and for whatever reason, it just clicked around the age of 12 or 13, and
what did that look like, though? Did you hey, I'm done with baseball, I'm going all in? Did you get lessons?
No,
how did that look?
No, I kept playing baseball, and I still love baseball to this day, my favorite sport. I love sports to this day, and but it did take over more of my interest in going into my high school years, and I forgot the second part of your question.
No, did you take lessons?
Oh.
Did it self-taught? Or?
My dad taught me chords.
Okay.
And from there, I just, no lessons, just played with friends and just slowly kind of, I think my given ability kind of took over and helped me just kind of mature as a musician, learning from this guy who I played with and this other guy who I played with. And then I joined the choir where I met you and your brother in high school, and was then surrounded by musicians all the time and learning from this one and that one. And so, I guess in a way we all took lessons from each other, And
so really you could say you're pretty much self-taught.
Yeah.
That's so funny you brought up the choir. I want to explain to all of our listeners, it doesn't really instill a lot of excitement when you say choir.
Right.
But this choir was different. It was kind of a rock and roll Christian choir that the church we went to was fantastic. And that's where you and Brian met? Brian's my brother, so you started playing with him.
Yeah, and I never would have met him because you guys went to our rival high school.
That's right.
At Buchholz, and I went to Gainesville High School. But No, and actually started a band with your brother
Yeah.
Brian, Swampwater Taffy, and so yeah, those were fun days, just all of us learning, and a little disappointed. I'm hearing Brian doesn't play much drums
Well,
anymore.
I know you got to rally them. It's never too late. Well, that's really interesting. Like, so essentially self-taught. One would say you probably had a gift for that right off the bat.
I think so.
Yeah.
Because there's some stuff that just kind of comes to me that I gave lessons for a while, and it was a little frustrating for me because I didn't know how to convey what this is kind of natural to me, and that's when I started kind of appreciating whatever gift that I have, so yeah, but that's not to say there hadn't been a ton of hard work.
Well,
that's
of course.
gone along with it.
I mean, self-taught doesn't mean you automatically pick up the guitar and know exactly what
Right.
to do. Did the singing come along with it right out of the bat?
No, in fact, when I was, I guess, by first or second grade, when my dad was at the First Presbyterian Church in Fernandina Beach, I was given the third verse in "We Three Kings" at a Christmas show at the church, and I remember just being so nervous, and my voice was like shaking. Probably sounded like good vibrato. I don't know, but I was so nervous, and I did not want to sing ever again after that. And going through high school, I was always in bands, and I was not the singer. I was just the guitar player. And then in about 12th grade, I got encouragement to start singing, and now people think of me more as a singer than a guitar player.
Well, I know. It's funny how that happens. When you were nervous on that first time you were singing, probably everybody in the crowd thought it was amazing. And you're like, I never want to do it again.
But I still vividly remember singing it, the nervousness, looking out, at the crowd, and being so young. It's crazy that I remember it that clearly. But
Well, yeah. I mean, you remember exactly kind of when you started thinking about loving music, and then it's obviously very distinct memories in your brain about stuff.
And that in first or second grade, that wasn't me wanting to go sing. I think that was my dad being like, "Hey, you need to go sing," And
It feels like a lot of musicians come from ministers, things that are associated with religious music. It seems like that happens a lot.
well, the church is a great place to kind of foster
And
music.
nobody's going to throw tomatoes at you or anything like that.
No, yeah, and it's a safe place to to be around other musicians and just learn.
Yeah. What are some of the early musical influences? I mean, you talked about what you could physically touch, the choir, the church. Like, was there some big name artists, things like that, people you really liked?
Well, my first big influence was James Taylor. I remember I love the finger picking. I've always been more drawn to the acoustic guitar than the electric. I own both. I play both, but I would consider myself more of an acoustic guitar fan, if you will.
Is acoustic considered more of the pure side of it, more of the technician kind of thing?
Well, I don't. It's a little more difficult to play an acoustic guitar, but the great technicians of the guitar, you can play a lot faster and a lot more, I guess, detailed. Or a lot of the guys who are just drop your jaw technicians are electric players, and but there are guys like Tommy Emmanuel, who's just a master acoustic player, and so I think there's pros and cons for both.
Obviously, we know James Taylor. Tommy Emmanuel, is he part of a group? I know.
No, he's an older gentleman from Australia who is just a
legend in the business for guys in the business.
And just a master guitar player, kind of like Chet Atkins or those kind of guys.
Eric Clapton, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, you talked. I was going to ask.
But as far as James Taylor goes, my first when I started playing out as a solo musician, I got started as a James Taylor cover act.
Okay.
I went out as Mudslide Slim was my stage name, because his.
Where did you come up with Mudslide Slim?
His second or third album is called Mudslide Slim and the Blue Horizon.
Okay.
And so yeah, I think this was 11th grade, 12th grade. I started going out and playing solo gigs in Gainesville.
What were some of the places you played in Gainesville?
The Shamrock was one. That's right on University. The Hardback Cafe, which is now something else, is right next to the Hippodrome, downtown Gainesville. And there was a place over in the Thornbrook area, and I forget the name of it now.
Milltop or something like that, wasn't there that place? Or
Millhouse was here in
yeah.
Jacksonville.
Okay,
That's
okay.
where I got started here in Jacksonville. But yeah, just in Gainesville it was just kind of smaller bars, and I don't even think they paid me. You know, I think I was just going out playing, and probably got some tips. But yeah, so I would just go out and play a set, 12, 15 James Taylor songs. And then, and that's how I got started playing solo.
Oh wow, man, that's interesting. That's interesting. What I was going to ask you, like, what was your family history? Obviously, you told us your dad. Was your dad pretty much the only one in your family musically inclined, or did you have relatives, siblings, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I do have siblings, but neither one of them are musically inclined.
Okay,
Two sisters, and I love them. I have a great relationship with them, and they support me and my music just like my mom, just amazingly. And but bless their hearts, they have no.
You're not going to ask them up to stage.
And they'll be the first person to tell you that. Although my sister Shelly does strum the guitar and still does. You know, a lot of people, they'll pick it up and play it for a little bit, and then in a couple years later, I'll be like, hey, you still playing the guitar? And you know, it's just been so busy. And to her credit, she still picks it up and plays it, you know, and so yeah, I admire her for that, because I don't know that if I didn't have the natural talent that I have, if I would be so persistent, you know.
Right.
So yeah, it was just my dad, and then his uncle, my cousin, or his dad's cousin, is a great guitar player.
Okay.
And so that's dad's side of the family has music coming down through it, you know. And
which isn't normal. I mean, you know, a lot of people don't have anybody musically inclined in their family. So it makes sense that you would have some sort of push from somebody at least, or influence, you know. Yeah.
It still just does amaze me how it just clicked, you know, at that point. And I went from just being focused on sports and girls to music.
And girls. I was going to say, the music and girls goes along. Right. Don't be modest, okay? We understand that. One of my best friends in high school could play the guitar. And man, it was just, you could not compete. You could not compete when he started playing the guitar. That's really interesting. So we talked a little bit about the instruments you play. So is it just guitar? What other, are you playing anything else?
Well, professionally, I play, while I'm at work, I play the guitar and I play the harmonica.
Harmonica self-taught too?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, harmonicas, a lot of people don't know, come in keys. So if we're playing Wagon Wheel in the key of G, if you pick up a G harmonica and blow through it, it's going to sound great. You know, it's all the notes you need in the key of G. So harmonica is not super hard to play. The hardest thing is just knowing that you have the right harmonica for the key of the song you're playing. So yes, it was self-taught.
You sound like you've made that mistake before.
Yeah, yes. Well, my buddy Jack Stripling, I remember back at the Hardback Cafe in 10th grade, we were playing a song we wrote called Enigma, and it was in the key of E. And he goes, guys, I got a harmonica. We didn't know that harmonicas came in keys back then. And
I don't think anybody, when you say it come in keys, like there's different harmonicas for different notes.
Different.
The physical harmonicas.
If you're playing, there's 12. There are 12 notes and they're like, you'll see John Popper from Blues Traveler. He has this vest, and they're all stuck in there. And
that's funny.
But Jack had the wrong key, and for our song, because I remember he just started blowing into the mic, and I was playing guitar, and I looked out and I saw some people go like that. And then that's the last thing you want to see at like your first gig. But, you know, that was a learning moment for me, you know. So
that's funny.
Funny. While I'm playing my gigs, it's guitar and harmonica, but I have a home studio, and then I play a little piano. I play some drums. I played sax in middle school. So I play a lot of instruments, but
the music inclination transfers to different instruments for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's interesting. Well, let's move on to college. Tell us about that college experience. So left Gainesville, still playing, went to Tallahassee. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I did go to Tallahassee only to play some gigs. I didn't go to FSU. I went to Berkeley College of Music in Boston.
Oh, wow. You went to Berkeley. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
But when I went to Tallahassee...
Why am I putting that I'm putting that correlation together with my brother somehow.
Yeah. Played at the SAE house.
That's right.
In Tally. But... But yeah, I went to
So
Boston.
you went to Berkeley. I didn't realize I needed to salute you or something.
No,
That's
it's
a
not
high
like
honor.
Berkeley in California, but it's a really good music school. And going back to the self-taught thing, I went in over my head because I didn't know any music theory. You know, that's all the stuff you learn when you're taking lessons and so I had to cram a lot of music theory in that first summer before I went to Boston, and got there and just found myself overwhelmed, you know, and also it was a long way for me as an 18-year-old who was very attached to my family, and so only stayed there one semester, and then came back home to Gainesville.
That's probably a misconception, though. Like going to a music school, you think you're just playing music. In reality, you're doing a lot of studying of history and how you put it together and all that.
Mm-hmm. And stuff that you know people learn that take lessons. You know, that aren't just learning. You know, I tested very highly in ear training when I went into Berkeley, and I skipped a few classes. And when I went to my first class, they were using all this terminology that I had no idea what. You know, and I said, you know, I'm not sure what you're. And they said, oh, you need to go back to ear training. You know, I was
Ear
like,
training
okay, I didn't know. So yeah, but that was a great experience. Loved Boston. Loved the weather change, being up there in the cold, we could walk to Fenway, you know, and so yeah, and then I went on to Full Sail in Orlando.
Okay.
And,
is that a music school too?
Audio engineering. So that's where I learned how to run all the equipment in my home studio, you know, Pro Tools and all that stuff, and recording and microphones. And so at that time, I thought I was going to be an engineer, or I wanted to be an audio engineer.
Yeah.
And but that, as I said, has really given me a lot of just foundation for knowing how stuff technically works.
And how long were you there?
That's a 14-month program.
Okay.
So it's on a escalated time. So you go like 8 hours a day, and it's 24-hour cycles. So your classes could be at 4 a.m.
Oh, interesting.
So
it's like a cram.
Yeah. Definitely.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it also gets you used to working odd hours as you would in the film industry, because they have a film department and audio engineering, and so it gets you used to working weird hours or offbeat hours.
Yeah. So after that, you come out thinking you're going to be an engineer. What happened next?
Then moved back to Gainesville, and was just kind of trying to figure out what the next step was. Yeah. And ended up moving to Jacksonville, and that's when I started playing music. My buddy said, I'm opening a restaurant on the north side of Jacksonville, and his mom and my mom were best friends, Ruth and my mom Debbie, and I'd known Ruth forever, and I knew of Gary. He is a bit, 10, 18 years older than me, so we weren't quite in the same circles, but when I moved to Jacksonville, we would all go out and hang out, have dinner for the night, and come back and end up at somebody's house, and I'd be playing the guitar. Right. So he knew that I played and that I sang, and he said, would you like to play at my restaurant on Friday and Saturday nights when it opens up? And I said, man, all I have is a guitar. I don't have speakers and mics and all that stuff. And I was pretty broke. And he said, listen, I'll buy all the equipment for you, and you just work it off, after 8 to 10 gigs, it'll be paid off, it'll be yours. And so so I did that. I was also a server at the restaurant at the same time. Right. And from that point on, I just started getting more gigs, and it just took off to where I didn't really even expect it to go, as far as the income that I was earning and the opportunities that I was getting, and just how people received my music. Right. And
well, that's the first time you really consistently performed in front of people, right?
Solo, for sure. Yeah. And when I in the early 2000s, I had a band, Punjab, in Gainesville, and we would play, a couple shows a month pretty regularly. Right. But
at that, you're just like having fun with your buddies,
You're making,
this is a job now.
Yeah, right. and you're splitting it up with the Punjab. You're splitting the money up 5 ways. It was not a job, and so yeah. And really, I remember when he said, we play 8 to 11, and I remember thinking, man, do I have 3 hours worth of songs,
Right,
and
right.
but I did at the time, and I think it was pretty close to just 3 hours,
Right.
and the breaks. I know you're going to ask me about that later, but the breaks were almost strategic back then. It's like, okay, I need to take a break now to eat up a little bit of this time, But
Well, it's funny you brought that up because it's something I wanted to talk about because I've seen you play many times and you're pretty regimented in the good part of the word. Like, you start on time, you have your breaks, you end on time. Like, tell me why that is. Like, is it you found it over the years that the more regimented tell me why you do that way.
For me, I'm just very prompt in everything in my life. So I think it's kind of just an effect of that. I hate being late for things. It makes me feel anxious.
Right.
It makes me feel I don't like it. So usually I'm early. You
Right.
said be here at 3. I was here at 2:50.
Right.
And that's just how I am, and that's how I am with work. And so yeah, I always start on time. I'm always there, set up. I like to have about 15 minutes to change from roadie Robby to musician Robby, And so once I have everything,
Setting up can be a half hour of an hour.
It is.
thing.
It is about 25 minutes. Unless it's a night where I'm playing with Felix, my buddy on violin, and then he'll be setting up a little bit of it. So that might shave 5 minutes off of it. But yeah, and I've set up and taken down so many times over the years now that I could do it in my sleep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like to have about 10 or 15 minutes after I'm done setting up, then start right on time. And then most of my gigs are 3 hours, and I like to go an hour, and then I take about a 12 to 15 minute break. And that break is usually either me going to the bathroom. It's mostly me catching up with regulars. Like I'll see in the first hour who's there that I want to say hi to, and then I want to just make sure they know, that I know they're there. And
So that's really interesting. You brought that up. You've made that a point in your career to go out and reach out to the regulars
sure.
and let them know.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I not just let them know, but just say hi,
Yeah.
And say thanks for coming.
Right.
When you and Christy are there,
Yeah.
I try and come by. Y'all are always at the bar area,
Yeah.
and I stop by and say hi. And that's not because I feel like I need to. It's just because I want to,
Well, it's probably indirectly one of the reasons why your career has done so well for so long.
Well, that'd be awesome. but yeah, no, I love that I have regulars and that they enjoy coming out and listening. And so yeah, and it does sometimes I'll get home at night and I'll be like, man, Aaron and Christy were at the bar tonight. I saw them when I was playing, and then I got sidetracked with this one or that one, and I never said hi, and sometimes I'll be a little hard on myself about not getting to some people. So
Right.
So yeah.
Right. Well, that's special because, people like to go see people that they know. That's one of the reasons why we started going. And you're pretty good too. You sound good.
Oh, thanks.
What are some of the places you play now? Like, where are your regular spots around Jacksonville? Like, where can people find you?
Well, Palm Valley Outdoors. When you hear me say PVO or you say PVO, that's Palm Valley Outdoors,
Right.
and that's over off Roscoe, underneath the bridge that connects Nocatee to Palm Valley or Ponte Vedra. That
And
side.
it's a fantastic location right on the intercoastal.
It is. The sun
plenty of
sets
room.
right behind us as we're playing. The owner, Paul Rohan, there has just done an amazing job. They had a tough period where some ownership issues were going on, and he has really worked through that, and we love it there. Again, I say we, Felix and I, we play there every Saturday, and then I play there solo every Thursday, and it's just a beautiful setting, like you said, right there on the water, and one of the great things about it is it seats so many people.
Yes.
You've seen it. And the bar area
Yes.
is just a small part, and then there probably seats another 200 people at tables out there. So you're looking at 250, 300 capacity that I'm playing for out there, and that's just awesome. You don't get that at a lot of the venues that you can play.
Lots of room. Family oriented, kids are running
Dogs.
around. Dogs, that's true.
So and then there's Harps, which that's my longest running gig. That's over in Avondale, Riverside area. I started playing there in 2007.
Oh my gosh.
It was one of my first gigs after the Mill House. that's another very family oriented. It's right on Fishweir Creek.
Okay.
Lots of locals, and Riverside's a very
Artistic.
it's artistic, and everybody's walking here to there, and so lots of people that live in that area are regulars, and like I said, I've been there since '07. I remember playing for these girls, these twins. They wanted to hear American Pie. You know that song. This was back in 2008, and they were probably 7 or 8 years old. They just turned 21.
Oh my gosh.
A couple weeks ago, and their grandmother asked me to play American Pie for them, and they didn't ask for it or anything, and I thought they were going to be like, oh gosh, rolling their eyes. Oh yeah, I don't know, we used to like this song, but they started crying.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it's just great.
That's pretty special.
Yeah.
So you've been playing there that long. They've been coming to see you that long.
Yeah.
And they turn 21, have their first legal drink, and let's do an American Pie.
Yeah, I know. It makes me feel old, but
Well, yeah.
also I just appreciate it and love all those Harps regulars, and you know, it's a great place, and it's been good for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Do you do private events?
yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of private.
I know we've
I've
been
done some
fortunate
private
to
events for
have
you.
a couple of them, and there's going to be more to come. Tell me about those. Like, what do those look like generally?
Well, they could be corporate, anything from a corporate event down to someone hires me to play in their living room. You know,
That's happened before?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Just for a couple people.
Yeah. But, I mean, usually it's more than the smallest, probably 12 to 15 type people.
Interesting.
But there have been some private events that, like parties, where it's scheduled to go 8 to midnight, and by 11:30, most of the party is gone. We're down to just the homeowners, you know, and I am playing for just 2 people, and waiting for them to be like, you know what, you can probably go.
it's
But
okay.
they're not saying it, so I keep playing.
Right.
But so yeah, lots of different kinds of events. If they want music and they're willing to pay the price, you know, I'll do it.
Yeah.
You know?
No. You've been fantastic. I feel like it's been like at least 3 or 4 events that we've had, and your music and your style, and I think we had Felix at one of them. We'll start talking about him, but it's just a great atmosphere type music.
Well,
you
thank
know?
you.
But do you prefer a big crowd? Do you prefer a small crowd? Like, let's start. What's the biggest crowd you think you've played for?
Well, gosh, let me think. I mean, probably back in those church days, because our church sat 500-600 people.
Okay. Okay.
So we were slated to play the Barbecue Fest, and we were going to play Daly's Amphitheater.
Oh my gosh.
A couple of years ago, and then the Barbecue Fest canceled.
Okay.
So that would have been up there as far as, I don't know. I know we were pretty early on the day, like maybe we were set to go on at 1. So I don't know. It wouldn't have been full.
Right.
But, you know, who knows?
Pretty
right
special.
now, maybe we go back to Trinity, and those were my biggest crowds. But
That's true.
Palm Valley Outdoors, being 300, you know, when it's packed out, is probably the biggest, you know, on a regular basis.
Do you prefer being packed or not?
I prefer more people as opposed to playing like one-on-one.
Right, it's a little awkward.
Yeah, and I will get nervous. That's the only time I get nervous.
You still get nervous.
When I used to do weddings, I stopped doing weddings a few years ago, although I did one a couple weeks ago as a friend. That's when I would get nervous, is when I was playing, when the bride was coming down the aisle, because you know, she's going to remember that moment the rest of her life. Right. Whereas when I'm playing out on a Friday night at, you know, wherever, no one's
people's memories aren't good.
Right. So,
just don't pick the wrong harmonica when the bride's coming down, right?
Right. But that never went wrong, and that's not why I stopped doing weddings. They just, you know, became more work than they were really worth. And we do so well on Saturdays at PVO that it's not really the extra money we'd be making at a wedding isn't worth the songs that I need to learn for the bride and the groom that I would never really learn, and I don't want to spend time on. So
when you made that jump, like I mean, it's funny. It seems like you kind of got pushed into it and you never looked back. Like financially, I think that's probably a little nerve-wracking, right?
Yeah.
In the beginning, like I'm making my job playing music.
Well, one good thing is that I was I was pretty broke. Right? I was a server,
matter, right?
and I was living month to month, and no, I could have never imagined that I could actually make a good, comfortable living.
That's awesome.
Playing. I mean, and other people don't. my mom, we were just having lunch last week, and she said the people who live in her Lake Crest community were saying, how does he make a living doing that?
Right,
you know,
right,
and
right. When are you going to grow up and get a real job?
right, and I can see how people they just don't know, but it's no different than any other trade, like a plumber or or a writer, you know, and you know, I write invoices, I chase money from time to time. You know, it's a business, and I have a service to offer people, and so it's been great. I'm a homeowner. I love that I don't have to travel. I know you were going to get to making it big, and I have friends who are musicians who play with this country artist or play drums for this one, and they're on the road traveling around. They're having a great time, but I like to be near my family. I like to have a dog. I like to have a house. I like to sleep in my own bed, and so it's just a different kind of musician than like a touring, I want to make it big musician, and then there's the musicians that are just working and you know, carving out a life. You know?
Well, but you've carved off the life you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of people can say that honestly. Like, I'm doing what I want to do on my own schedule.
Yeah. No, I pinch myself all the time. I mean, it's amazing, and I haven't had a real job in, you know, almost 20 years.
Well, you have a real job.
Right. I mean, a real job where you want, like, when do I get to go home kind of thing, you know?
Does, we talked a little bit about compensation. Would the majority of your compensation from a night come from the tips or from
No, only about 20%.
Okay,
you know,
interesting.
And it depends on the gig itself. You know, PVO, because it seats so many people, naturally the tips are going to be bigger there because you're exposed to more people.
Yeah.
So from gig to gig, it's different. But I would say on average, about 20% of my, you know, income from any particular gig is tips. However, Friday nights on YouTube, which I know we'll get to later, those are 100% tips, you know. So.
Well, I mean, since you brought it up, I mean, I remember it obviously generated from COVID because you were telling us about it one night. I was like, wow, I didn't even think about this. So tell us about your YouTube channel and what you do, how it started, and obviously it's continuing on.
Yeah, I started the YouTube channel back in, I want to say, maybe 2010. And I was just putting up videos of me and my original songs, you know, just putting stuff up, you know, not really knowing, you know, and YouTube was pretty new back then, first 5 years. And then, you know, I gradually, as my music grew, I started posting more videos of me playing at this gig or that gig. But it wasn't until lockdown, March 2020, that, you know, and everybody was stuck at home.
Yeah.
And I had just built my home studio. I had a kind of a bad breakup and just wanted to, like, immerse myself in something. And so I said, I'm just going to take one of my spare rooms and just turn it into a home studio.
Yeah.
Bought all the equipment, and it worked out that a lot of that equipment also could be used to broadcast on YouTube for good quality, you know, streams. So that I started doing that, and you know, during lockdown, everybody was at home, so I was getting like 1,000 views for every Friday night show.
When you say 1,000 views, there was 1,000 people watching you doing it live.
Yeah, well, amazing. Some of them came maybe the next morning,
right?
Because you can pull them back up, but and I don't remember at the time. It was around there, and they ended up going over 1,000. Well, now it's down to 100, 150 because everybody's back to normal life, and it has been for a while. But I still have this great core of. We call ourselves a Friday Night Fam, the Friday Night family that are there chatting, always tipping, supporting. And then there are others that are, I would say that core group is probably 40 strong. And then, but the bulk are other people that are watching that aren't chatting, maybe watching the next day.
Yeah.
Because I run into them I was doing a private gig around Halloween this year.
Yeah.
And this guy brought me a root beer. And I was like, how did you know I like root beer? You know, and I said, did I ask for this? And he said, no, I watch your Friday night shows. And so and on those shows, I'm always drinking root beer. And so I'm always kind of amazed at how more exposed I am than I think. I think it's just me. And I also, when I'm playing and I'm reading the chat on my phone, I have a rubber band around the part that says how many people are actually there watching because I don't want to be.
Yeah, right.
I don't even
want to
know.
be enthused or not enthused
Right.
or whatever emotion that
Right,
comes.
because early
Yeah.
on it would do that, and I'd see the number go down while I was playing a certain song. I'd be like, "Why did they leave?" This song?
Yeah, I
What's
didn't
wrong
even
with
think
this
about
song?"
that.
And,
Like, oh, they don't like the
so
song.
I don't want to know. And at the end, I see, I just don't want to be bothered with that number while I'm playing.
That's a good call.
And so for that reason, sometimes just taken aback, like, oh, this guy was watching, and I just never would have expected that. And so yeah, that's been great. And I've now 4 years later, I am still I average. You never know what you're going to make on those Friday nights because they're all tips. And but I average about what I would make at a regular gig on a Friday night.
Well, obviously, I would think you would, or else you'd probably be playing somewhere
Right.
on a Friday night.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But what a cool thing how a series of events set that up, because if you hadn't started it before COVID, it probably wouldn't have really happened before COVID.
No. And I there's a local musician, Taylor Roberts, awesome jazz guitarist. If you ever get a chance to see him, you should.
Yeah.
He would go live on Instagram but pre-COVID, and because I would get home from my gigs and I'd see he was live, and I'd pull him up and on my recliner I'd get to watch some Taylor, because I rarely get to see him because I'm playing most nights, and on the nights that I'm not playing, usually I'm not looking to go out to a bar, you know, and but there are nights like if I want to go on a nice date, he plays out at the Ritz at Ferrandino.
Oh yeah,
and,
okay.
If I want to, that's a date spot where I'm going to take this Friday off and go
Right.
see Taylor, and
Right.
So that gave me a good opportunity to see him, and I always thought, man, I wonder if I should ever do something like this, but I always just put it out of the back of my head because at the time I also didn't have the studio,
Right.
and all the hardware and software to make it happen, and that all just kind of happened naturally right before lockdown, and really worked out well. And
awesome.
It's nice to work from home. I never
my
thought
gosh.
as a musician I could work from home.
Well, and it took some building out of the studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just not something you do right off the bat and make it sound good.
Right. And on top of that, like my earliest shows, the lockdown, first of all, the studio started in one room of my house and is now in a bigger room.
Right.
So if you watch those early shows, A, it's a whole different room. B, the set is just like 2 pictures and something. Now I've got lights, and it's just evolved over the years, and lots of stuff that I've accumulated from shows where whether I played here or there, they all go into the studio. So it's it's turned into kind of a memory music room,
Yeah.
as well as a studio and a TV set, and so
That's neat.
yeah.
I haven't. Are you playing your own stuff, or are you playing cover? Like, what's the mix? Is there a mix?
It's just that it's a mix,
Okay.
and I mostly play covers. It depends on the gig. Friday nights on YouTube, I definitely mix in originals because a lot of my Friday night people like my originals, and but my shows, say at PVO, they're mostly all covers unless people ask for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like the other night, for Saturday night with Felix, we played one of my originals towards the end of the night. So I'll throw them in, but I usually wait for people to ask for them. I love my originals. I definitely have some popular ones, but they're not how I make my living. I understand that. I love them like they're my children, my songs, but
Right.
I know where my bread is buttered, and I'm a performer before I'm a writer.
Right. Have you ever done a record?
Mm-hmm.
You have?
Yeah, I've got 2 albums out right now on all streaming platforms.
What are the names of those albums?
Amelia was the first one
Okay.
and then the second one was an EP, which is a shorter. It's 5. Amelia was 20 tracks. The Aria EP, Aria is my dachshund. The Aria EP is 5 tracks. So they're a total 25 tracks
Neat.
right now on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever
Right.
you download your music. And before that, when I was younger, I had albums that I recorded, in nice studios, and so I had all the tracks. I just never had them packaged and labeled and all that stuff. So I would just take them from my iTunes, burn this for people, and hey, this is my album, Mr. Fancy Pants, and I just hand them out to people. You
Right.
know, and so when I did the streaming service thing a few years ago, that was my first kind of legit album, and that was all recorded in my home studio. All the instruments are me, everything on them is me, and produced all by me. Which I've learned. I've come to appreciate producers.
It's I'm
because
sure it's a lot
you
of
need
work.
it is, and you also just need a second opinion just to check yourself.
Yeah.
Just to say, hey, what have you thought about this, or how
Right.
do you. So, because I remember when I was at Full Sail and I learned what a producer was, and then like, oh, they're going to produce your music. They're going to tell you. And I was like, I wrote this. I know how it should sound,
right.
but no, as you get older, I think you realize help is a good thing.
Need some direction.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess the days of handing out CDs are over, right?
Yeah,
It's
they
not
are.
applicable.
I used to keep them in my glove compartment, and now I just, somebody asked for one within the last 2 months, I remember. And I remember thinking, I might have said it out loud. Do you really want a CD? And
I got a typewriter in the trunk for you too. Well, we've mentioned this guy Felix. Tell me about Felix. I know, don't know him as well as you, but I've seen you guys play.
Yeah. I was playing at a gig called a place called Seven Bridges over in the Tinseltown area of Jacksonville, and it's 2012. And I remember he came up to me at the end of the show and said, "Hey, I play violin. Can I play with you sometime?" And I, at this point, I started in 2006 at the Mill House and became full time. So this was 6 years into my full time music career.
Yeah.
And I had bunch of people that would come up and say, "Hey,
really,
man, we got to jam sometime."
Right.
And I give them my card, and I hope that they lose it on the way out. And but something about Felix, he was like dressed in a suit. You see him; he's always dressed very well.
It can be 95 degrees, and the man's got a jacket on. It's very admirable,
So he also. He doesn't drink, so he wasn't drunk, and he was presented himself very well.
Well, he stood out in the crowd already.
Yeah, and then he helped me carry my equipment in my car, and then I said, I'll be back here at Seven Bridges in 2 weeks if you want to join me. And I totally forgot about it. And the day came that Thursday, and he texted me, and I thought, oh gosh, yeah, let's do it. And so that night I had just gotten one of these little flip recorders. This back in the 2010s, little cameras that recorded video, and I thought, man, this might be good. I'm just going to take it and record it, and I'm glad I did, because to this day on my YouTube channel I have a Watchtower. That's a song that we played that night, and it was the first night we ever played together, and so
and it was really natural, just rolled off.
Yeah, and you can even see me. I remember when I first started playing with him, I'd look. I couldn't help it when he would start jamming. It would just be like a grin would come over. But I couldn't believe what I was like experiencing.
Right.
And he was playing with other bands at the time. I remember he was playing with a salsa band, I think, and they were playing at Madure down in Ponte Vedra. And I said, I'm gonna go by there and check out and see what this is all about. And I went by, and there was like 12 people in the band. The band took up half the room, and. I remember it came time for his solo, and he got like 16 measures of solo, which in music time is like 10 seconds, and then they went on to the next guy who was not nearly, he was clearly the thing with this band. And I just remember thinking, man, he's got to be showcased.
Next level.
More, like he...
Does he do full-time like you, or does he have another job? Or?
He was, at the time, he was working for Merrill and doing financial stuff, and kept working with that until I think it was 2018 or 2019, and then started doing real estate with his brother. And so he's always had other things going on, and right now he also owns a couple Tesla it's not a paint job, but I don't know much about it. Owns a couple of those, and he's constantly busy now. Before pre-COVID, he was playing 4 to 5 shows a week with me, and now he only plays Saturdays and some private and corporate stuff. Because he just doesn't. Before he needed, it was part of his income, and now I think he just does it because he loves it.
Probably likes it. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where I've seen you guys play so much. Is Saturday nights at Palm Valley Outdoors down in Ponte Vedra. It's a great spot to go, and he's next level with that violin.
Yeah,
like when you say
it's
jam
electric
out,
violin.
right? When you say jam out, it's not like Beethoven. It's getting after it.
No, and his thing, I mean, he's never said this to me, but what I've gathered is that he likes to play stuff on the violin that's not classically violin. You know, it's an electric violin, so he's got a lot of effects. It sounds like he can make it sound like an electric guitar, as you've heard. Like he also plays it like a violin on certain songs, but it's just not your standard in the box violin player. And also, when he started with me, he wasn't singing at all. And I remember one night he pulled up to a gig and he had this microphone hooked into his car stereo, and he was like singing. You could hear his voice in the car, and he was singing. And I thought, man, why aren't you singing with me? You know. And from then on, he's had a mic, and now he sings lead on 5 or 6 songs. And
absolutely.
And he has a great voice, which his range is higher than mine. I have a lower range, so we fit very well.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
it's
thank
awesome.
you.
Do you guys? I think you answered this before. Do you normally take requests? Are you like out going, hey, do you have requests, or you just kind of let them come in, or how does that work?
Pretty much just let them come in. People say, hey, do you take requests? And I always just say, if I know it, I'll play it.
Yeah.
And if I've heard it and it's not too kind of intricate of a song, I can pretty much just pull it off. I don't love just like winging it,
Well, I would assume that would come with a tip when people ask that. Out of courtesy, I would think.
Right. And it usually does. It usually does. But yeah, and sometimes somebody will tip me, and I'll know they're regulars, and I know the songs they like, and I'll play it because I know they requested it before, kind of thing.
Has there ever been like a kind of a crazy bar experience that you've had? I know I had that down here. Like, what comes to your mind that you can tell on PG television here?
Well, there's a few stories over the years, but there's one that I've told over and over that I call the Bon Jovi story. And I was playing at Kickbacks, which is over in Riverside, and there was this gentleman there, and he was in a Steve Nash Dallas Mavericks jersey. I'll never forget it. And he came up and he slapped down $100 bill. He goes, "I want to hear Bon Jovi." Okay,
for 100, I'm ready to go.
Happy to play some Bon Jovi for you. And so I played "Living on a Prayer," and as I was finishing it up, he slaps another 100 down, and he says, "I want to hear it again." And I said, "Well, man, I don't just repeat songs over and over." Yeah. And so I said, just give me a second. I'll go print out. This is pre-iPad. I had to run into the office at Kickbacks, print out like a few more Bon Jovi songs, like "Blaze of Glory," and so long story short, $700 and something later
of Bon Jovi songs.
He just kept, and I tried to stop him at 300, and my buddy Gary, who owned the Mill House, was there that night with his fiance, and on a break I said to him, "What do I do? I'm not trying to take advantage of this guy, and he said, "Man, if he wants to,
And everybody in the crowd's like, "Man, this is great, Bon Jovi cover act."
Right. And he actually at one point started taking his jersey off, and the owner was like, "Well, he's tipping you so much, I think we're just gonna let him."
That's hilarious.
So
I feel like there's a Vegas story behind that. It's like, oh my god.
But incidentally, a couple years later, he came in and dressed totally differently. Played a Bon Jovi song. He didn't even look over.
He didn't even bite.
Didn't even look over.
He was in a different frame of mind. Well, as we wrap up, I want to kind of get to a couple quick personal things. I know you go every summer to, I think it's your family's lake place in Michigan?
Beaver Lake, New Jersey.
New Jersey, close. So tell me about that quickly, because I thought that was kind of a cool thing I've seen you post about it and you told me about it.
Yeah. My sisters and I are sixth generation in our family to be Lakers at Beaver Lake. And so my sister's children are seventh generation. And my great grandfathers founded the lake. And so we've been going there since I was very young, spending my summers there. When I was a kid, I would spend almost the whole summer living with my grandmother and my older sister and I. And so you just had those summer friendships. It was almost like a camp. I never went to camp, but I imagine that's what it was like. And Beaver Lake is a very small community where everyone knows each other. There are lake events.
When you say founded, like literally colonized the lake
Right.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Started building around it.
Yeah, and my grandmother would be much better to ask about the history of Beaver Lake.
Yeah.
But no, it's just my favorite spot in the world, and so many good memories of being young there and growing up. And
Do you do your YouTube when you're up there?
I have.
Yeah.
The first couple years after COVID, I drove. It's a lot to take the whole studio,
Right.
all the equipment that I need. It'd be like you taking all this stuff up there,
Right.
and on top of all the
Your
regular
yeah.
equipment,
Right.
And so yes, I have. And there are some. If you look on YouTube, Beaver Lake on my channel, you'll see those shows,
Right.
and they're picturesque. They're great, and I still this year I drove. I always drive up nowadays because I do. This year I played a show off the lake at a bar there near Beaver Lake in Franklin, New Jersey, and went really well. It was a small place, so and the lake really came out strong in support. So the place was just
Sounds
packed.
like you need to write a book about this experience. It's pretty cool, like Norman Rockwell type.
They do
lake
say
thing.
I've never seen On Golden Pond the movie, but my grandmother says that is how when she tells people about Beaver Lake.
Well, I think it's funny because I think I've seen your post about it, and that's what it makes you feel like. I mean, a lake special, remote, that sort of thing. That's pretty cool. And another thing you're big into is disc frisbee. Okay, I pronounced it wrong earlier. So
it's
tell
not
me
frisbee
about
golf;
that.
it's disc golf. Yes,
Okay.
I'm a big disc golfer, and
So literally, it's just like golf, but you're throwing a disc.
yeah, and the discs are you've got a driver, you got
Yeah.
a mid range, which is like a 6-iron, 5-iron, and you've got a putter. And so my bag has 17, 18, drivers and mid ranges, and then 3 putters. So you're carrying around, anywhere from 20 to 25 discs.
And are you driving a cart? Or
No,
walking it?
there is a course here in Jacksonville out off I-10 that's both a regular golf course and a disc golf course. And the disc golf, it's a long disc golf course, and they do offer cart rentals.
So there's plenty of places to play around Jacksonville.
Oh yeah, there's just in Jacksonville there are 5 courses.
Wow.
There are 2 courses in St. Augustine, one being built, one in Green Cove, one new one in Orange Park that I just played the other day called the Grove, which is awesome. It used to be a regular golf course. They've repurposed. So yeah, there's no shortage. In my hometown Gainesville course, which I'll be playing Wednesday morning when I'm gonna head back and visit a friend. And so yeah, there's tons of courses.
Something I didn't really know until I saw that on there. So another sport you could pick up.
Yeah.
Well, I have to ask, how many times do you think you've sang the song "Happy Birthday" in your life? Are you approaching trillions at this point, or what?
I play. There's probably 250 gigs a year, and I probably play it every second gig. So 125 times 15.
He's doing the math.
I thought you 2,000 times.
I would say that maybe there's some gigs you play it multiple times.
Oh gosh, yeah. And the thing, well, I'll play it. I'll play it, and then someone will come running up, and they'll say, "Oh, it's my friend's birthday." I'm like, "Well, I just played it. Let's not overshadow the person."
Can we do a group birthday song,
and
please?
that's what I end up
Maybe
doing.
you ought to just start coming out like, "Hey, birthday song goes on in an
Yeah.
hour. Give me the names between now
Alexa,
and then."
Lance, and Elisa. You just name them all, and
Well, in closing, what do you think your perfect gig is? What would you say? The place, the crowd, the time, all of that. What does that look like?
I would say probably my perfect gig would be at Beaver Lake. With all my friends there.
Well, kind of like you said you had last summer you went to that bar. Right?
Yeah, but the ones actually on the lake.
Yeah.
My favorite gig back in 2020, maybe it was 2021. My sister Shelly bought the house that my grandmother owned when we were growing up. So
Okay.
now Shelly and Miles own it, and there's a gazebo down by the water. And I had always dreamed, I guess, of playing a show, like taking the table out of the gazebo and me being in the gazebo and playing out to the lake and people coming with their boats and kind of tying
man,
to
I
each
didn't
other.
think about that.
And
yeah, that's neat.
and so we did that in 2020, that was great. And that's, I mean, that's my favorite spot in the world, doing the thing that I love with my, favorite people in the world.
It sounds like an amazing place.
Yeah.
You real quick, I actually do own a mortgage company, and you mentioned earlier you own a house. Mm-hmm. Can you remember what it was like buying that house? Anything come to your mind? Was it difficult, easy, stressful? What comes to your mind when you think about buying it?
My mom works for or was retired, but worked for BBVA Compass, and she was a banker her whole life, so I had a lot of help as far as buying it, because where I'm very good with music and all this stuff, there's a whole side of life that I'm not good with.
So mom helped you through the process. That's not fair.
Yeah.
That's we'll have to talk to mom at some point. But anyway, no, super interesting to talk to you, Robby. If you guys haven't followed him, follow him. Check out his gigs. I go to him a lot. Love it. And really great to have you on the podcast, man.
Yeah.
I think we're going to love this.
Robby and Felix on Instagram,
That's right.
Facebook, and the YouTube channel is just my full name, Robby Schenck, Schenck. And
Let's do it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was great.
All
Thanks. The Hometown Jax podcast is recorded and produced by First Coast Mortgage Funding, located in the heart of Jacksonville. Do you want to be our next guest? Visit our website at hometownjaxpodcast.com. We can't wait to hear your story.